At 1:07 a.m., the rain in Seattle wasn't falling anymore. It was attacking. It hammered the windshield of a black sedan idling outside a lakeside estate, each drop smearing city light into watery streaks. The driver reached for the door handle out of habit, trained, polished, careful. But the man in the back seat didn't wait. He pushed the door open himself and stepped straight into the storm. Before we proceed, please drop your location. I want to know how far our story has traveled. Also hit the subscribe button to show your support for our channel. His name was Adrian Vale, and on paper, he was the kind of man magazines loved. 42, celebrated architect, the person behind half the glass towers now puncturing the skyline. He wore a suit that probably cost more than some people's rent, and rain immediately darkened it to charcoal. He didn't care, because he hadn't seen his daughter in 3 weeks, and lately, when he did see her, even through FaceTime, she looked like a child trying to be brave in a war zone. 4 years old, too small to carry the things her eyes had been carrying. Adrian hurried to the front steps, punched in the code, and stepped into warmth. The door shut behind him with a deep, heavy click, and the mansion went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like a house holding its breath. Adrian stood there for a second, rain sliding from his hair, listening. No TV hum, no music, no footsteps. Then, faintly, something from upstairs. A sound so small it almost wasn't a sound at all. A whimper, cut off mid-breath, and then the soft, sickening thud of something hard striking wood. Adrian's exhaustion drained out of him like somebody pulled a plug, because any parent knows the difference between a child dreaming and a child surviving. He didn't call out. He didn't announce himself. He moved. Upstairs, the hallway lights were off. Only moonlight and distant street lamps laid pale strips across the polished floor. Adrian passed framed photos, award ceremonies, ribbon cuttings, magazine covers. And then the family photos. The last one with Sienna, his late wife, was still there. She smiled at the camera, cheeks lifted, eyes bright. She had been gone nearly 2 years now, and the ache of that loss was supposed to dull with time. Instead, it had changed shape. It had become guilt. Because after Sienna died, Adrian made a promise to their daughter Maya. He promised Maya she would never feel alone in that house. And lately, she did. Adrian reached the end of the corridor where Maya's bedroom door waited, slightly ajar. The whimper came again, smaller this time, like a child trying not to get caught being scared. Adrian leaned in, and what he saw through the crack in the door made his stomach drop. A woman was kneeling beside the bed. Not his wife, not his housekeeper, the nanny. Her name was Noemi Rios. Mid-20s, quiet, careful, the kind of employee who always seemed to fade into the background so the family could take center stage. But right now, Noemi didn't look invisible. She looked desperate. Her hair was loose, her eyes ringed with dark circles, her hands gripping Maya's tiny wrists as if she was trying to stop the child from doing something dangerous. Maya was backed into the corner of the bed, knees pulled to her chest, clutching something to her body. Adrian pushed the door open. The nightlight painted everything in soft gold and made the scene even worse, because warm light should never fall on fear like this. Nomi looked up, startled, caught, breathless. "Please," she said quickly, voice shaking. "Mr. Vale, wait, I'm not hurting her." Maya shook her head violently, tears standing at the edge of her lashes. "Don't take it," she whispered. Don't take it." Adrian saw what she was holding. A small wooden hourglass, handmade, smooth, with pale sand running through it in a steady stream. A toy, a decoration, something harmless. So why did Maya hold it like a life raft? Adrian's voice came out low and sharp. "Nomi," he said, "what are you doing?" Nomi loosened her grip immediately, palms lifting in surrender. I was trying to get it away from her so she can sleep, she said. She, she's been holding it every night. She won't close her eyes. Maya flinched like the word sleep, and eyes were dangerous. Adrian stepped forward, arms opening. Maya, he said softly. Baby, Daddy's home. He expected her to melt into him, to cry into his chest, to do what children do when the person they trust most returns. Instead, Maya recoiled, not from Nomi, from him. She pressed into the corner, clutching the hourglass so tightly her knuckles went white. Her lips trembled. Daddy, she whispered, don't come closer. Adrian froze. The air in the room turned thick, as if his lungs suddenly had to work harder. No, sweetheart, he said, voice gentler now, confused. It's me. It's okay. Maya's gaze darted to the sand slipping down inside the glass. It's almost empty, she said. Her voice was so small it barely existed, and then she said the sentence that made Adrian's blood run cold. If it stops, you won't come back. Nomi swallowed hard. She's been saying that, Nomi murmured, every night. I don't know what she's been told, but before Nomi could finish, heels clicked in the hallway. Slow, measured, like whoever was coming wasn't worried about waking a child because they weren't afraid of consequences. A second later, Vivienne Vale appeared in the doorway, Adrian's wife. Technically, Vivienne wasn't Maya's mother. She had entered their lives less than a year after Sienna's death, charming, polished, always dressed like she belonged on a private yacht rather than in a child's hallway at 1 a.m. Even now, she would look composed. Satin robe, perfect hair, skin glowing like she slept 8 hours and drank water for a living. Her eyes landed on Maya first, then flicked to Nomi. And the softness in Vivienne's expression sharpened into something else. Not anger, not fear, control. Oh, darling, Vivienne cooed as she crossed the room. My poor little angel. She swept Maya into her arms with a kind of performance tenderness, pressing the child's face into her shoulder, one hand cradling the back of Maya's head. Maya didn't hug back. Her hand stayed around the hourglass. Vivienne looked up at Adrian with shimmering eyes like she had been waiting for him to walk into this exact scene. You're home early, she said softly. Then, without turning her head, she spoke to Nomi as if Nomi were a stain on the carpet. What did you do? Nomi stiffened. Ma'am, Nomi said, I wasn't. She's been awake for weeks. She pinches herself to stay awake. She's terrified that if she sleeps. Vivienne's grip on Maya tightened. Stop, Vivienne snapped, and then smoothed her voice again like switching masks. You're upsetting her. Maya's wrist had a faint red mark where Nomi had held her. Vivienne lifted Maya's arm just enough for Adrian to see it. Adrian, Vivienne whispered, voice trembling. Look. Adrian stared at the mark. His exhausted mind did what tired minds do. It grabbed the simplest story. Nanny hurts child. Wife protects child. Father fixes problem. Adrian's jaw tightened. Nomi, he said, voice turning hard. Step out. Noemi's eyes widened. Mr. Vale, please, she begged. If you send me away tonight, she'll be alone with. She stopped herself, like she realized too late what she almost said. Alone with who? Vivienne tilted her head, all innocence. With me? Nomi's throat moved, but no words came. Adrian had already decided. He took Nomi by the arm and pulled her into the hallway. Nomi stumbled, barefoot, trying not to fall. Please, she said, voice cracking. Check her room in the middle of the night. Please, she's not sleeping. This isn't normal. Adrian didn't answer. He marched her downstairs. He grabbed her canvas bag from the couch, shoved it into her arms and pointed at the door. Leave, he said. Now. Nomi stared at him like he wasn't the man she thought he was. It's a storm, she whispered. I don't have my coat. Adrian's hand hovered on the lock. You should have thought about that before you grabbed my daughter, he said. And then, with a final click that sounded like a judge's gavel, he shut the door in her face. Upstairs, Maya lay in bed as if nothing happened. Vivian tucked the blanket with calm hands. She even hummed, soft, sweet, practiced. Maya's eyes were closed, but Adrian noticed something that made his skin prickle. The hourglass sat beside her pillow, and Maya's fingers, outside the blanket, still gripped its wooden base even in sleep. Vivian met Adrian at the door. She's exhausted, Vivian whispered, guiding him away with a hand on his forearm. She needs stability. Nomi was chaotic. Adrian let himself be led back to the master bedroom. He wanted to believe Vivian, because believing her meant he didn't have to face the other possibility, that something was wrong inside his home. Vivian slid into bed and fell asleep quickly. Perfume and satin and ease. Adrian did not. At 3 a.m., the digital clock blinked a cruel blue. Adrian stared at the ceiling, replaying Maya's reaction. The way she shrank from him. The way she spoke to that hourglass like it had rules. The way Nomi had almost said something and then swallowed it. At 3:14, Adrian swung his legs out of bed. He didn't turn on any lights. He walked barefoot down the hallway like a man approaching his own fear. Maya's door was slightly open again. A thin line of light cut into the darkness. Adrian leaned in, and his entire body went cold. Maya's bed was empty. Not messy empty, neat empty, as if nobody had slept there at all. Then Adrian saw her, down in the corner of the room, sitting cross-legged on the wooden floor, back straight, shoulders rigid. The hourglass on a low stool in front of her like an altar. Maya's eyelids drooped. Sleep pulled at her like gravity. And just as her head began to fall, Maya jolted upright. Her tiny hand shot down to her thigh, and she pinched herself so hard her face twisted in pain. A sound escaped her, half sob, half gasp. Then she stared at the sand again. Adrian's hand flew to his mouth, because a 4-year-old doesn't do that once. A 4-year-old does that when she has done it many times. The sand reached the bottom. Maya moved instantly, flipping the hourglass with a practiced motion so smooth it looked rehearsed. Then she whispered, barely audible, 1, 2, 3. Daddy is still here. Adrian staggered back from the door like he'd been punched. Because in that moment he understood something terrifying. His daughter believed her father's existence depended on her suffering, and someone had taught her that. Morning didn't bring relief. Maya lay in bed like a child who had fought all night and lost anyway. Skin pale, breath shallow, fingers still clenched around the hourglass like it was keeping the world together. Adrian went downstairs, head pounding, throat tight. In the laundry room behind the kitchen, he found a jacket hanging on a hook. Nomi's jacket. Gray wool. Frayed sleeves. Guilt hit him so hard he actually closed his eyes. He reached into the pocket thinking maybe there'd be a tissue, a key, something small. Instead, a little spiral notebook slid out and hit the tile with a hollow thud. Adrian picked it up. The cover was bent. The pages were worn soft at the edges, like it had been opened and closed 1,000 times. He flipped it open. The handwriting was uneven, rushed, sometimes smeared, like written with shaking hands. And the first entry he read made his stomach twist. Maya pinched herself again tonight. She said she has to stay awake or her father won't find his way home. Vivian told her sleep makes people forget. I tried to comfort her, but she shook and begged me not to say anything. Adrian turned pages, faster now. Dates, notes, small observations. Then one from the night before he came home. Vivian told me I'm not allowed upstairs after 9 p.m. Maya cried and asked me to hide the hourglass. She begged me to stay. I went anyway. I couldn't watch her suffer. Adrian's hands trembled so badly the notebook rattled. Nomi hadn't been attacking Maya. Nomi had been trying to pull Maya away from the thing hurting her, from the belief poisoning her nights. And Vivian had been orchestrating it. Footsteps clicked on the stairs. Adrian snapped the notebook shut and slid it inside his jacket like hiding a weapon. Vivian entered the kitchen radiant, in a fitted dress, smoothie in hand, smile ready. "Good morning," she sang softly, kissing Adrian's cheek. Her perfume felt heavier today, like fog. "I was thinking," Vivian said, "we should redo Maya's room. Fresh paint, new bedding, clear out the negative energy that Nanny brought in." Adrian forced his face into something that might pass for calm. "Sure," he said. "Whatever you think." Vivian's smile widened, satisfied. Adrian grabbed his keys. "I have a meeting," he said. "Late one." Vivian tilted her head. "Again?" Adrian nodded. "I might stay downtown." Vivian kissed his cheek again. "Work hard. I'll take care of everything here." Adrian walked out. He got into his car. He drove away. And then, 2 blocks later, he pulled over and turned around, because he didn't believe a single word that had just come out of her mouth. There had once been a security camera in Maya's room. Adrian installed it after Sienna died, not because he wanted to spy, but because grief makes a parent terrified of losing the last piece of their world. Vivian had insisted it be unplugged. "She needs privacy," she'd said. Adrian had agreed because agreeing was easier than conflict, and he was tired. And Vivian seemed so certain. That morning, while Vivian slept, Adrian had quietly reconnected the backup system. Now, he parked on a dirt turnout near the back hill where his home's Wi-Fi still reached, and he opened the camera app on his tablet. The screen flickered. Then Maya's bedroom appeared in grainy black and white. Empty at first, quiet, hourglass sitting on the table like a patient predator. Time passed. Maya wandered in and out of frame. She didn't play with toys. She didn't climb on the bed. She kept glancing at the door like she expected punishment to walk in. Night came slowly. Street light bled through curtains. And then the bedroom door opened. Vivienne entered. She wasn't wearing a motherly robe now. She wore satin, wine-red lipstick, a glass of red wine in her hand like the night was hers. She didn't greet Maya, didn't hug her, didn't even look at her with warmth. Vivienne crossed the room, sat in the chair, and lifted a finger. Not toward herself, toward the floor beside the hourglass. Maya walked over and knelt, knees on wood, back straight, eyes fixed on the sand. Adrian's throat tightened, because the posture was pure obedience, not play, not imagination, a ritual. Vivian leaned forward, lips near Maya's ear. The microphone caught her voice, calm as a lullaby and twice as cruel. "Watch it," Vivian whispered. "Every grain. If you close your eyes, it stops. And if it stops, your daddy forgets the way home." Maya's shoulders shook. "I won't sleep," Maya whispered. "I promise." Vivian smiled, small, satisfied. "That's my good girl," she said. "Nomi wanted you to sleep, didn't she? She wanted your daddy to disappear so she could take everything. But I'm here. I'm the only one who protects you." Maya nodded frantically, terror making her obedient. Vivian stood, drained her wine, and walked out. Before leaving, she flicked off the main light, leaving only the night light, just enough glow for fear to have shadows. The door shut. Maya remained kneeling, staring at the hourglass like her father's life depended on it. In the car, Adrian made a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a growl. His hands shook so hard he almost dropped the tablet, because now he didn't just suspect, he knew. Vivian wasn't strict. Viviane was breaking his child. And Adrian had helped by being absent, by trusting appearances, by throwing Noemi into the storm. Adrian started the car, and he drove home like a man racing his own regret. Adrian burst through the front door so hard it slammed into the wall. He didn't remove his shoes. He didn't lower his voice. He climbed the stairs with footsteps that sounded like the house itself was being judged. Maya's door. Adrian shoved it open. Vivian stood near the vanity, wine glass lifted. She turned, startled. The glass slipped, shattered on the rug, red spreading like a wound. Vivian stared at him, frozen in disbelief. "Adrian?" she breathed. "What?" Adrian didn't look at her. His eyes went straight to the floor beside the bed. Maya was there, kneeling. Hourglass clutched to her chest, eyes wide, terrified. Not of Vivian, of Adrian. Because in Maya's mind, Adrian wasn't the rescuer. He was the thing that could disappear. "No," Maya cried as Adrian stepped closer. "Don't touch it. Daddy, please." Adrian dropped to his knees in front of her, careful, voice shaking. "Maya," he said softly, "listen to me. Daddy is right here." Maya sobbed. "If it stops, you'll go away." Vivian recovered and stepped forward, voice coated in fake concern. "Adrian, you're frightening her," she said. "I was only teaching her discipline. Children need structure." Adrian turned his head slowly toward Vivian. The look on his face made her stop walking. Not anger like a tantrum, anger like ice. "You told her," Adrian said, each word clean and lethal, "that if she sleeps, her father forgets her." Vivian's lips parted, trying to form a story. Adrian didn't let her. He reached for the hourglass. Maya fought him with everything her tiny body had left, sobbing, screaming, hands locked around the wood. Adrian's hands were gentle, but unstoppable. He pried her fingers loose and took it. Maya lunged for it again, panic wild. Vivian Denny's voice rose, sharp now. "Stop it, Adrian. You're being dramatic." Adrian stood. He lifted the hourglass high. "Maya," he said, voice breaking but firm, "watch Daddy." Then he threw it. The hourglass hit the hardwood floor and exploded into glass and pale sand. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet room. Maya screamed and covered her head, curling into herself, waiting for the world to collapse. Adrian dropped to the floor beside her, ignoring the glass that bit into his knees. He wrapped his arms around her without forcing her to look. He whispered into her hair. "Nothing is going to happen," he said. "I'm here. I'm staying." A second passed, then two. No disappearance, no magic, no punishment from the universe, only silence. Maya's sobs slowed. She lifted her head a fraction, eyes peeking through fingers. She saw sand spilled on the floor, still, lifeless. And she saw Adrian, real, breathing, solid, eyes red with tears. She reached out a trembling finger and touched his cheek. Warm, human. She made a sound like her chest finally unclenched. Then she broke, crying the way a child cries when they've carried an adult fear too long. She threw herself into Adrian's arms. "You didn't go," she sobbed. "You didn't go." Adrian held her like he could press her back together with his hands. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. "Not ever." Behind them, Vivian's voice turned syrupy, desperate. "Adrian, sweetheart, you're misunderstanding." Adrian rose, still holding Maya, and faced Vivian. "You're leaving," he said. Vivian's eyes flashed, anger breaking through. "This is my house too," she snapped. Adrian's voice lowered. "It was never your house," he said. "It was my daughter's home, and you turned it into a prison." Vivian's chin lifted. "You can't prove anything." Adrian stared at her for a long beat. Then he said, calmly, "I can." Vivian's face changed, just for a second. A flicker of something that admitted she understood the danger. Adrian didn't argue further. He walked out of the room with Maya in his arms. And as he passed Vivian, he said the words that made her finally step back. I'm calling the police. And I'm calling my lawyer. You should be gone before they arrive. Vivienne left, not with grace, with fury disguised as dignity. Heels snapping down the stairs, door slamming, engine roaring away into the night. Adrian locked every door behind her. Then he sat on the floor of Maya's room with his daughter in his lap while she shook like a leaf. And he realized something painful. Breaking the hourglass didn't fix her. It only stopped the nightly ritual. The fear was still inside her, wired into her body now. Maya sniffed, eyes swollen. "Daddy," she whispered, voice hoarse. "Who's gonna watch now?" Adrian's throat tightened. "Nobody has to watch," he said, even though he could tell she didn't believe him yet. Maya's gaze darted to the sand on the floor like it might start moving again. Adrian forced himself to breathe slowly to keep his voice steady, because children borrow calm from the adults around them. And Adrian had been lending her anxiety for weeks without realizing it. He carried Maya to the master bedroom, bundled her in blankets, and stayed with her until her breathing evened out. Then he made calls, real ones, not threats. A lawyer who answered on the second ring because wealthy men get answered. A child therapist recommended by a friend who didn't ask too many questions over the phone. A report filed because the truth matters more than reputation. And then, one call Adrian hesitated on, staring at the number with guilt burning his palms. Nomi. He didn't know where she was. He only had her personnel file, an address, and the knowledge that the last time he saw her, he slammed a door in her face during a storm. The next morning, Adrian drove to the south end of the city, where the neighborhood changed from polished gates to street murals and corner music, and people who watched strangers carefully because they had learned to. He found her at a taco stand, apron on, hair tied back, hands moving fast. Nomi looked up, and her smile vanished. Not fear, not anger. Something worse. Disappointment. Adrian removed his sunglasses slowly like he didn't deserve to hide. And then, in front of strangers, in front of people who clearly cared about her, Adrian did the one thing his pride hated most. He bowed his head. "I was wrong," he said. "I'm sorry." Nomi's eyes glistened, but she didn't rush to forgive him. "I told you she wasn't sleeping," Nomi said quietly. "I told you it wasn't a toy." Adrian nodded. "I found your notebook," he admitted. "I saw what she was doing. I saw what Vivienne was saying." Nomi's hand flew to her mouth for a second, pain and relief mixing. Then she asked the only question that mattered to her. "Maya, did she sleep last night?" Adrian's eyes dropped. "No," he said. "She asked who would watch now." Nomi closed her eyes, breathing in like she was steadying herself before walking into a burning building. Then she untied her apron. She said something to the stand owner, quick, firm, and she walked around the counter toward Adrian. "I'll come," she said, "but not as your employee, not like before." Adrian nodded immediately. "Whatever you need," he said. Nomi's gaze hardened, protective. "What I need," she said, "is you to be there, every night, every morning, no disappearing, no work trip excuses." Adrian swallowed. "You're right," he said. "I'm done disappearing." Nomi got into the car and Adrian drove back to the mansion with a new understanding. Healing wasn't going to be a dramatic scene. Healing was going to be routine. The months that followed didn't look cinematic. They looked like slow work. Maya went to therapy with a woman who spoke gently and never laughed at fear, because fear doesn't need ridicule. It needs rewiring. Nomi taught Adrian how to sit with Maya at bedtime without rushing it. "No, go to sleep. It's fine. No, big girls aren't scared. Instead, tell me what your body feels like. Show me where the fear sits. Let's breathe together." Adrian learned that trauma lives in the nervous system, not in logic. You can't argue a child out of terror. You can only prove safety until their brain believes it again. There were setbacks. Some nights, Maya jolted awake crying, asking if Adrian forgot her name. Some mornings she refused to let go of his shirt when he tried to leave for work. So Adrian changed his life. He stopped taking late dinners. He stopped chasing every deal. He let his firm handle what his firm could handle. And he started showing up. Not as a hero, as a father. They changed the house too. Not for energy, not for aesthetics, but for comfort. Heavy curtains replaced with softer ones that let morning light in. A nightlight that didn't cast harsh shadows. A little bell on Maya's door so she could hear if someone came in. Not because danger was expected, but because control calms a child who once had none. And still, some nights, the fear returned. Because fear is stubborn. One autumn evening, Nomi suggested something simple. "Let's sleep outside," she said. Adrian blinked. "Outside?" "In the yard," Nomi said, "where the sky is big, where the night doesn't feel like a corner." So they laid sleeping bags on the grass. A small fire pit crackled. Maya lay between them, body warm, eyes wide. As darkness deepened, Maya's breathing quickened. Her hand searched in the dim until it found Nomi's sleeve. She gripped it hard. "Don't sleep," Maya whispered. Nomi didn't scold her. Noemi turned her face toward Maya and spoke like a lighthouse speaks to a ship. "I'm here." Adrian watched Maya's pupils dart to every shadow, every branch sway, every flicker. And he realized Maya wasn't afraid of the dark. She was afraid of what people did to her in the dark. Adrian sat up, poked the fire, sparks rising. Then he said softly, "Maya, do you remember the sand?" Maya stiffened. Nomi glanced at Adrian, curious. Adrian kept his eyes on the sky as if the answer lived there. "That night," he said, "when we broke the hourglass, you thought the sand was gone forever." Maya swallowed and nodded. Adrian pointed upward. "But what if it wasn't gone?" he continued. "What if it didn't disappear? What if it changed?" Maya's gaze followed his finger. The sky above Seattle was unusually clear. Cold air, clean wind, stars sharp and bright. "Where did it go?" Maya whispered. Adrian smiled, small and careful. "Look," he said, "up there." Maya stared. Nomi understood what Adrian was doing and didn't interrupt, because sometimes a story is a bridge where logic can't reach. Adrian lowered his voice like he was telling a secret the world didn't deserve. "Every grain of sand that was used to scare you," he said, "escaped that house. And the wind carried it up, higher than the trees, higher than the buildings, all the way into the sky." Maya's mouth parted slightly. "It turned into stars?" she asked, like she was afraid hope might be illegal. Nomi smiled. "Yes." "Mija," Nomi whispered. "Stars." Adrian nodded. "And here's the best part," he said. "Stars don't need you to watch them." Maya's grip on Nomi's sleeve loosened a fraction. Nomi pointed to one bright star near the tree line. "See that one?" she asked. "That one's stubborn. It doesn't blink." Maya stared as if she could make it blink by looking hard enough. Nomi continued, voice steady and warm. "The stars take turns watching the world. They watch the rabbits in their burrows. They watch the birds tucked in trees. They watch your daddy too." Maya looked from the sky to Adrian. "If I sleep," she whispered, "you won't forget?" Adrian took Maya's small hand and held it between his palms. He looked right into her eyes. "Never," he said. "Not because you stay awake, not because of sand, because I'm your dad, and because I choose you. Every day." Maya's face crumpled, relief and grief mixing. "I was so tired," she whispered. Adrian's throat tightened. "I know," he said, "and I'm sorry you carried that." Nomi gently rubbed Maya's shoulder in a slow rhythm. Adrian kept his voice soft, consistent, no sudden intensity. "You did your job," he told her. "You worked so hard, but your shift is over." Maya blinked slowly. "The stars? We'll watch now?" she asked. Nomi answered before Adrian could because her voice carried a kind of ancestral certainty. "Yes," Nomi said. "Let them work." Maya stared at the sky a long moment. Then her shoulders lowered. Her body sank deeper into the sleeping bag. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. "Okay," she murmured. "Stars can watch." Her eyelids fluttered, closed. And this time she didn't jolt awake. Her breathing deepened into something smooth, childlike, real. Adrian didn't move. He just watched his daughter sleep like it was the most fragile miracle on earth. Nomi looked at him across Maya's resting body. They didn't speak. They didn't need to, because the truth was sitting there between them, warm as the fire. The storm had passed, not because the villain left, but because the child was finally safe enough to rest. In the weeks after that night, Maya still had anxious moments. Healing isn't a straight line, but she had something she didn't have before. A nervous system learning that sleep was not betrayal, that rest was not danger, that love does not require suffering as proof. Vivian faced consequences, legal ones, documented ones, because cruelty hides best in private. And Adrian learned that privacy cannot be an excuse for unchecked power. And Noemi didn't return as the nanny. She returned as a steady presence in Maya's life, with boundaries and respect, because saving a child doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. Adrian learned to apologize without conditions, to listen the first time, to trust the quiet person who shows up consistently over the charming person who performs love like a role. And if you're listening to this story and your chest feels tight, if you're thinking about a child you know or a moment you ignored because life was busy, here's the truth Adrian learned the hard way. Sometimes a child's bad sleep is not a phase. Sometimes it's a signal. And the most dangerous monsters don't live under beds. They sit at dinner tables wearing perfect smiles. If this story moved you, take a second to like the video and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It helps the channel reach more people who love long-form storytelling. And share in the comments. What moment made you realize the truth before Adrian did? Until next time, may your home be safe, may your nights be peaceful, and may the people who love you never make you earn rest. Good night.